first-time DM learns players are conspiring to destroy his game. I'm mainly writing this as the situation plays out as a way to gather my thoughts, so the story will most likely be updated several times. Also, kind of looking for advice deal. I'm DMing for the first time and purchased the D&D starter kit as well as the essentials kit. The group I'm playing with are all longtime friends or more. My girlfriend, good friend 1, good friend 2, and good friend 2's girlfriend. Good friend 2's girlfriend, my girlfriend, and I share an apartment, and good friend 2 plans on moving in soon. The group has played D&D together before, but I was a player, and good friend 1 was our go-to DM, and him and I were talking since the first session 0 about us alternating being DM. I DM for a module/adventure, then he DM a module/adventure he was interested in. Repeat. My girlfriend is playing a monk. Good friend 1, a sorcerer. Good friend 2, an artificer. And good friend 2's girlfriend, a wizard. When we first decided to all play together, it was with the understanding that we were going to have multiple session 0s. Not everyone could commit to the agreed upon time slot at the time, but could within about a month. So our plan was to have session 0s with everyone able to come to that week's session, and start the game when everyone's schedules stabilized. This gave me a lot of time to plan. Knowing my players well, and having been a part of /conspirer/driver of similar antics whenever I was a player, I knew these guys liked to avoid anything that seemed like a main story plot hook, even if they bit a plot hook. Once I tried to reel them in, they would rather die than be caught up in it. This has not stopped anyone from having a good time at the table, before when Sorcerer was DMing. So I wanted to make sure, regardless of what my players decided to do, I had something prepared for it. I even bought the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide to learn about the areas outside the scope of Lost Mines of Phandelver and Dragon of Icespire Peak, in case they decided to wander outside of that area. I hopped on World Anvil, and even before the second session 0, which takes place tonight, I've spent over 100+ hours creating the beginnings of multiple adventures inside Neverwinter, in case they refuse to help deliver the supply cart to Phandelver and plant their feet within the city. Ways to get the story of Lost Mines of Phandelver back on track if they decided to go to Phandelver but not take the supply cart. All the quests in the module's locations, so if they explore in any given direction, I can run the encounters whether they have accepted a related quest or not. If they see there's nothing of interest to the north of Neverwinter, or to the south on the map they're allowed to see, I made up some adventures/quests for both Luskan and the Mirror of Dead Men. I currently don't know if things have already been published for those locations, but came up with ideas after reading their segments within the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. I also came up with reasons the sailors in Neverwinter wouldn't want to take the players back out to sea, but plan on setting an unreasonable price that would get them on a boat if they want to bad enough. And adventures on the small islands dotted on the Sea of Swords that don't seem to have anything already on them yet, in case they decide to build a raft and manage to drift out to sea and be carried to the islands by the currents. Because no one in the group has any navigation skills, and they don't usually put any planning on how to derail campaigns. It's more spontaneous, and I never thought anyone's antics were malicious. D&D was just everyone's way to let out most of their childish, immature creativity. A common theme amongst most of our childhoods and strict upbringings was that our different creative interests were heavily suppressed. Now, the main point that made me wonder if this qualified as a horror story. Anytime someone within this group talks to someone else in the group, it's on speakerphone. When we're at home or in our cars, we don't do this in public. More often than not, even private conversations. We'll usually step into another room before we take someone off speakerphone. When I woke up this morning and stepped out of my room, 3 of my 4 cats were waiting outside my door for pats and attention, and to tell me their food bowls are empty. My girlfriend is mildly allergic, so we don't let them in the bedroom to keep them off the bed and the pillows. This is a morning ritual that keeps me at my door for several minutes. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but couldn't help myself once I realized the subject of the conversation. Wizard was on the phone with Artificer, and Artificer was telling her to ask her coworker, who loves playing D&D, what's the best way to ruin a game. Telling her I was going to have a story I tried to keep them on, and they had to do whatever they could to not be a part of it. Wizard didn't think his attitude about the game was appropriate, but within a couple sentences, their argument devolved into something more private, so I walked away to feed the cats. I have been having mixed feelings about the situation. At first, I landed on, this will be a good opportunity to see if I under/over planned for players who want a more sandbox game. I don't want to seem hypocritical and be upset they're planning to derail my campaign, but the phrasing he used seemed to be too malicious to be written off as goofy antics. I'm trying to decide what my best course of action is. At the moment, have decided to confront him about it tonight at the Session 0, as well as revisit our expectations of the game that we discussed at the previous Session 0, to see if anyone has a different idea for what they want most out of the adventures. We also talked about dividing up the hobby's costs last week, reimbursing people for bringing food, snacks, drinks for the session, as well as the cost of the modules to divide the price evenly amongst the group. And I'm wondering if we should go ahead and put a more concrete plan for dividing costs before any more game-related purchases are made. TLDR, between Session 0's first-time DM overhears conversation between players, conspiring to ruin the game, unsure of how to proceed with the game. Okay, OP had done a lot of work, considering it's a module, and even expected them to fall off course. However, the players shouldn't do it on purpose. To me, them agreeing to do the whole thing means they are fine with playing a module. And I would think anyone would think that modules are known to be a bit railroady. That's the whole point. It's not like they can figure out exactly what players are going to do, and if they did have a problem with it, they should have stepped forward. OP practically made a whole homebrew module in case they strayed from the original one. And generally, I feel you shouldn't have to do that unless the whole adventure is planned from the beginning to be a homebrew. I do think that he's making the right choice on talking to them all at the Session 0 and figuring out payments accordingly, considering they are going to be trying to ruin a module that was bought and paid for. Well, at least one of them. I'm pretty sure he only found out about one of them and the other was against it. But still, it's best that he talks to all of them at once. Generally, I feel like there shouldn't be this type of conversation because it was up to the players to voice their concerns, not sit in the back and conspire to ruin it. The OP's new, and I don't think they've done anything wrong to cause this type of response. There have been multiple horror stories that we have heard that definitely were meant to be conspired against because they were rude or a horrible DM. But this one doesn't sound like that. And even if they are horrible DMs, I don't think I can back someone doing that. Generally just leave if they're a horrible DM. But anyways, that's all for today, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!